everybody tonight. Welcome, welcome. It's a rainy night here in the cold New York City, but I will take the rain over the snow. My dad, he moved out to Pennsylvania. I see that you're on time too. And he said it's snowing. I'm not ready for that. Just the idea of snow, like it's triggering me. I'm just like, I'm not ready for it. But so to start off, I hope everybody had a wonderful day. I hope that it was productive. I hope that you were able to accomplish whatever it was that you set your mind to. I hope that you did that. And the topic for tonight is actually going to be about mindset. So before we get started, especially as, I give people a little bit more time to come in, I am going to share with you, because, for the month of November, I'm doing the 30 days of gratitude challenge. And with that challenge, it just allows, at least for myself personally, it allows for just time to reflect on how far we have come. So for today, the first question on the worksheet, because I done memorized it already. So the first question on the worksheet is, how are you feeling today? Honestly, today I was moving a little slow, but I still was able to get things done, but I was a little fatigued. The affirmation for today, which is what I post on the stories on Instagram as well as on Facebook. Today's affirmation: I am the greatest. I said that even before I knew I was. And that was the great Muhammad Ali. And that really ties into today's topic of mindset. So we'll come back to that, okay? Now, 3 things that I am grateful for. Number 1 is having the drive. Because for myself, I was working as a school-based OT, switched over, now full-time entrepreneur. You have to be really gutsy to really make that switch. So I'm very grateful that I have the drive to do so. The second thing that I'm grateful for is that I am blessed with everything that I need. So whether it be food, water, shelter, safety, plenty of heat. I don't know if you guys know about city buildings. I'm not in the projects, but city buildings, they pump the heat. So even though it may be 40 degrees outside, inside here, it's close to like 85. So I'm grateful for the heat. And then the third thing that I'm ever so grateful for is creativity. I get some really good ideas, not to brag, but sometimes I get really good ideas. So I'm grateful for that creativity. The next question on the sheet is, what was like my favorite moment of the day? My favorite moment of the day was I learned a new feature. I know I sound like a nerd right now, but I learned a new feature on the website platform that I'm on, so I can really make some really cool emails. So I know I sound like a marketing nerd, but that was my favorite moment. And what I look forward to tomorrow is getting done at least the outline, because I have a webinar coming up. So I want to get the outline. I want to get basically the presentation for December 10th. I want to get that together. So we'll talk about that later. Anywho, as I had mentioned, the topic for tonight is mindset. So just like Muhammad Ali, if you had missed it, Muhammad Ali stated that he was the greatest even before he knew he was. And he set that intention for himself in his mind. So a lot of times it's a lot easier to fall into, I don't have this, or to focus on lack, or maybe focusing on things that you would like to change. And it becomes almost like a subject of negativity, only because we're looking at it from the angle of having a lack, right? However, if you portray and you exhibit your highest self, that's showing the world like, look, this is how I see myself, whether it be a professional, whether it be just a person who's great at whatever it is that you want to excel at. The key is to set that image in your mind first. And whatever it is that you can set in your mind and truly believe it's like no other option but for yourself to become that. So now you may be wondering, what does this have to do with autism? So I was having a conversation with, he's a coach that I'm working with on LinkedIn. And somehow we veered off topic, and I was explaining that at least for West Indian families, when you have West Indian families and their children may have, say a diagnosis of autism or, whatever cognitive deficit, whatever that child may have, it means nothing to the parents. And I don't want to say nothing, but it's like, it's no excuse. There's no babying, there's no excess coddling, only because they know that this child, regardless of whatever is going on, they are setting high expectations for that child. Now, we want to make sure when you're setting these high expectations that it's in line with something that is achievable. However, for many West Indian families, you never see the child disheveled. You never see the child, really, I don't want to use the word acting out, but you never see, at least appearance-wise, the child is well put together. And the child is expected to fit whatever the exterior societal norms. They're expecting that from them. So say, for instance, I guess this will be a second cousin, 2 second cousins of mine that have special needs. Their mother is Jamaican. It was never set up for them to receive extra, I don't want to use the word assistance, but I'm going to kind of use that word. It's not really the right one, but they were never given, okay, they have this cognitive disability, so I'm not going to expect much from them. It was like, no. Regardless, you have this going on, you are going to appear clean, neat, put together in front of whoever you come across with in society. So from the outside in, you wouldn't necessarily realize like that there was something cognitively wrong, maybe until you had a conversation with them. But from the outside, you wouldn't see that because the mindset of these parents, and I'm not saying that one type of parenting is better than the other. However, for this mindset of expecting, regardless of whatever this child has or has going on with them cognitively, or, whether it's emotional, behavioral, whatever it may be, by expecting the best, expecting them to kind of break past whatever barriers that may be set, that then has your child grow up learning and best fitting into what is expected of them. Now, this can go very left because a lot of times you may have parents that'll say, well, you know what? I feel as though, it's too much pressure. That's why you have to meet it at that just right, that just right area where you're not expecting the moon and the stars. However, there are certain things that your child definitely is capable of. However, it's very easy for parents and caregivers to get stuck on the diagnosis. And when you get stuck on the diagnosis, the expectations tend to drop. So that's where it's like when you're finding that just right level, you can have your child excel and exceed whatever, they may be going through. Another example, I was working with a senior, and I had mentioned this prior. I was working with a senior. He was probably close to 60. Now, when you would speak to him, cognitively, you could tell that, he has a speech impediment and he was, cognitively, disabled. However, this man was always dressed to the nines. His clothing was always starched, ironed. He lived by himself. He prepared his own meals. Now, he wasn't chefing it up in the kitchen. However, his aunt and uncle would take him to the grocery, and that allowed him to have a level of independence for himself. So this is a guy, on first take, you would think that he would need direct supervision, hand-holding, and whatnot. But the mindset that his parents set from the time he was young, because this is not something you could just whip out and be like, all right, child, even though, you may have X, Y, and Z, you're 18 now, so go forth and be independent. You got to set this in stone from when they're young. So from when your child is young, mindset-wise, not only do you have to emit and exude this level of confidence, this level of pride in your children, but you have to prepare your children for having that mindset as well. So even if it's something, say something small as a speech impediment, by mentally and emotionally gearing that child for success and letting them know, look, doesn't matter what is going on with you, whatever it is that you have your mindset on, that is what you will in turn achieve. And things can always be, graded up, graded down. So say if, for instance, your child, has cognitive disabilities. However, they really enjoy medical shows and they enjoy everything about, the doctor's office. I know maybe not, but, they enjoy that aspect of the medical field. Why not encourage them and say, hey, you know what? I see that you're passionate about this. Let's hone in on it. You continue to grow and develop in this, and we will find a way to have you participate in whatever it may be in a medical office, even if it's filing the papers or even if it's, helping people get checked in. This is something that's attainable. And if you alternatively, see like, okay, this child is, really into medicine. However, you say, you know what, you can't do that because you have a diagnosis of X, Y, and Z. That is then implanting in the child's mind, man, I really can't achieve anything because I have a diagnosis, or, I'm not good at paying attention, or I'm not good at math. So I'm just going to shut all my dreams and aspirations down. That's doing damage to the child's mindset. So that's why once you find out whatever it is that your child is good at, or that, you want your child to excel in, even if it's just being independent, mindset wise, you need to gear yourself to saying, my child is going to be independent with X, Y, and Z. And even if it has to have a certain level of supports in place, let's put the supports in place. And then for your child too, you want them to develop the mindset of, okay, my name is so and so and so, and I am going to be good, or I'm going to excel at X, Y, and Z. And from instilling that in the mind, it's that power of you can do, and you will be able to do great things as long as you put your mind to it. I was listening to something, sorry, a little sip of tea. I was listening to something, I think it was earlier this week, and they were saying that your thoughts turn into things. Now, at first you may say like, okay, whatever, I think a lot of things, I don't see all these 40 million thoughts that I have a day. I don't see them really coming to fruition. However, in fact, our thoughts do have a direct inflection into what we draw into our lives. So say for instance, I know with a lot of the economy, a lot of people are starting to think, oh my gosh, they have a lack of money, or, things are tough. People might say that they are broke. I will never claim I am that word, but people may claim they are broke. And then in turn, they're thinking these thoughts. And when you're thinking the thoughts of having a lack, you begin to attract a lack of things, and you begin to focus on lack. And just something so simple as just changing your wording can have a direct impact on the way that you think, and the way that you think is going to attract and create situations for you to experience in those things that are negative. So instead of focusing on negative, even if you are experiencing hardships, rephrase everything and think thoughts of abundance, think thoughts of peace, think thoughts of clarity, think thoughts of helping your child. And these thoughts will help gear you into thinking positively, thinking of ways that you can then find different avenues on how to deal with certain problems. So say, for instance, your child is pre-verbal. A lot of times people would say like nonverbal, but instead we're going to say pre-verbal, because just because they may not be able to verbally communicate, it doesn't mean that they cannot communicate in other ways. So for children that are nonverbal, many times they may point, or they may just get things themselves. Now, it can be easy for parents to say, oh, my child's nonverbal. This is a huge burden. I'm never going to be able to communicate with my child. Bah, 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 bah. But then alternatively, if you change your mindset, and instead of saying, my child cannot do this, my child cannot do that, my child cannot do whatever it is that I want them to do, change that. And now look at it from, okay, my child chooses to communicate in different ways. My child chooses to communicate, by showing me things or by pointing to things. So now just that window of my child can versus my child cannot has a significant impact. And your child picks up on these energies. Children on the spectrum, they are very sensitive to the energies of other people. They are very, very sensitive to that. So if you are having a bad day, or if you are just aggravated, like, oh, my child just can't do this right, even though your child may be pre-verbal, they internalize that. And instead of trying to communicate with you in whatever way that they seem appropriate, they may even start to pull back. And when they start to pull back, when you cannot communicate with people, or the way that you're communicating is not being, appreciated, that's when you get a lot of behavioral outbursts. Because a child may want something small, like, hey, my socks are too tight. But instead of trying to point and show the parent, look, my socks are too tight, because the parent is so frustrated with the child, just, whatever it may be, the child will then have a behavioral outburst, because they're not able to communicate in their own way to you, because you have closed that door of how your child is trying to communicate. It's just an example. But overall, be very, very cognizant of your thoughts. Make sure that the way that you talk to yourself, if there was some stranger in the room that was talking to you with what your thoughts were saying, if you would fight them, that means that you're not talking nicely to yourself. So be mindful on being positive, being kind to yourself. And that positive energy will emit to your children. They will pick up on that. They will pick up on, like, my parent is calm, my parent is loving, and I feel safe around them. Now, if a parent is stressed out, annoyed, aggravated, a child's not going to feel comfortable and at peace, because they're picking up those emissions of negative energy as well. So be mindful of your thoughts, be kind to yourself, be kind to others. And once you have that small shift in mindset, it's going to open up a lot more doors of opportunity, as well as just your thought patterns. So if you guys do not already know, I am having a free webinar on the 10th of December. And in order to sign up, the link is all in the bio. I'm sorry, I didn't even mention what the webinar was about. The webinar is all about caregiver burnout. This is specifically for parents and caregivers that have autistic children. So caregiver burnout, like, that is something that is so common, and a lot of people don't feel comfortable with expressing how it is that they're feeling. And I am vowing to just be a positive resource to allow parents to see, like, you're not alone. And there's ways that we can work on being more healthier, whether it's mentally, emotionally, physically, everything, so that you could best be of service to your children. All right, so that concludes the live stream for tonight. You all have a wonderful, wonderful night. Let me just double check to see if there was any questions. Okay, no questions. All right, everyone have a wonderful night. Thank you so much for joining, and have a great rest of your night, okay? Bye.